And good morning, everyone. Today we're going to talk about the upcoming release of Tecplot 360EX. And really what we're going to focus on is everything you need to know about that upcoming release, everything from installation to what's going to be included. We had a fair number of questions about Subzone Load on Demand specifically. There were some questions actually about using Fortran libraries to write out that format, so we'll probably touch on that as well. And we'll try to answer questions as we go along. Again, if you have a question, go ahead and ask away using the tab. I'll make sure I'm in the right area. Okay, great. So I'm Darrell Rittenberg. Some of you may know me, and I'm joined by Scott Emily. Good morning, Scott.
Good morning again.
Kind of the click and clack of Tecplot. We'll get started and hopefully, again, answer questions as we go along. We did have quite a few people sign up for this webinar, so we have some people who've indicated they want the recording, so we'll do what we can to make sure that we get it to them. So quick agenda, we have two sections this morning. The first section is really going to be more the basics. So what is Tecplot 360EX? We'll talk about the release schedule. The release schedule at this point, we are kind of aiming for a release in the next few weeks. We're doing what some of you probably are aware of as a bug bash for anyone who does software development. This is when we get everyone in the company to hammer on the product and hope they can break it.
Yes.
If we're lucky.
Yeah, that's happening today, and that'll be very exciting to see how many bugs people actually find.
Yeah. So and hopefully none.
Hopefully none.
Hopefully. We'll also talk about installation and licensing. I'm going to show you some work we've done on a portal, which we call My Tecplot, and I'll show you how you can get into the website, get a key, activate a key, deactivate a key, even submit a support incident. We're also going to be implementing a portal where you can actually add suggestions. And boy, do we get a lot of suggestions. Here's an opportunity if you want to sell us, hey, I would like to see X, Y, Z in the product. This is an opportunity.
So can I add suggestions to the portal?
Scott, you are welcome. You can be the first one, actually. We will also talk about backwards compatibility. So the next thing we'll talk about is 360EX. We're going to talk about the new interface, adjusting style. We'll be talking about leveraging some of the new pages, and we're going to spend a fair amount of time on Subzone Load on Demand. Specifically, we're going to talk about how you can convert data. So we'll show you some of the how you convert the data. We'll also get some help. How do you get help using My Tecplot? So, and lots of times for questions. So, should be very informative. Someone's asked, "Are we serious?" Yes, we're very serious about this presentation. So we'll get right into it. So, for those of you who are new to Tecplot 360. Tecplot 360EX represents a rewrite of the software, and we've calculated it's nominally 40% of the code had to be rewritten for the transition to Tecplot 360EX. That's a lot of and that was basically moving to Qt and SDK.
Yeah, right. The changes to the SDK were primarily about the Subzone Load on Demand. So it's kind of at both ends of the code, right? You're changing the user interface, and then you're changing the interface to the data.
Right.
You don't have to use Subzone Load on Demand, but if you do, you get a lot of benefits and speed and memory usage.
Right. Also, we're going to be talking about some of the work we did with Subzone Load on Demand, specifically around loading large data. And we'll talk about and show you some of the things we've done on the ease of use. Because this is a new interface and some of the ways that you change style have changed, we will have some tutorials. But it will take a little while for those of you who are longtime Tecplot users to go ahead and get in and change, for example, some of the styles that you're used to changing in one way. You may have to do it slightly differently. So we'll talk about those differences. From a release perspective, the first release, as I said, is imminent. It might be imminent. That is, it might be in the next few weeks here. We're kind of, as I said, at the very end in the bug fix, mostly just bug fixes. It's not a complete port of Tecplot 360 2013-01. The idea here is that we use agile software development, and when you get the product to what is we consider a marketable version, that is, it It has functionality that is core. There may be some functionality that's coming over soon. But as we go through, we'll talk about some of the things that will be coming very soon. So we're going to try to have releases about every 2 months. So you'll be seeing lots of updates. So as you talk to the folks in IT about installation, you're going to want to make sure that you let them know that at least for the next 12 months, we'll probably be averaging on the order of every 2 months we'll have a release.
Right. And there'll be substantial improvements as
Absolutely.
we go.
So the first release will have support for Windows and Linux. We will not support XP officially. That is to say that now that Microsoft doesn't support it, we certainly are going to follow suit. That being said, we do have people who have installed it and used it on 32-bit XP, and it does work. It's just it won't show up as our officially supported operating system. Similarly, but slightly different in this case, for the Mac users, we have found some issues with event handling specifically. For some people, they don't run into it at all.
Right.
Other people have found to be somewhat unstable. We're aware of the issues and we're fixing them. We will have the Mac available, but we will continue to call the Mac a beta.
Right, and it is much easier. I mean, it's a much better product on the Mac since it's not going through X Windows or Motif. But there is some issues, and it's just a matter of being patient, right? If you're not impatient with it, it's probably fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing is Subzone Load on Demand. The first phase, we focused primarily on exploration. And we'll talk about Ryan actually had asked about license keys. We'll get to that in just a second, but we'll talk about the keys. So the first phase of Subzone Load on Demand will be primarily around exploration. I don't know if we want to go into this explicit detail, and we'll talk about it when we talk about creating data here in the second phase of this second portion of today's presentation. You'll see pages, quick macros. You'll see the new data loading interface. We didn't talk about it explicitly, but we will talk about the data exporters. And we'll talk a little bit more about new license files and so forth, so there were some questions about that. Following the release, we'll actually have the official Mac release, some additional features in 360, including triangulation, constraints, other key features that will kind of continue to be agile as we learn. Okay, then we'll get to that one here in a second. Subzone Load on Demand will continue. We'll beef up some of the analysis capabilities, and we will be making a down payment on parts and components. The latter part of the year, so that will get us 2 months out. So let's say that's May, June, July. So towards the end of the year, we'll have another release where we'll have some additional capabilities around rotating machinery. We'll continue to build in high priority items, and we try to be agile, and so as we learn, if there are things that become mission critical, we can put them higher in the development backlog.
Adjust.
Yeah.
We have a question about Tech.io and which release it will be in. It is actually in the first release.
Yeah.
So it's available. It's actually totally backward compatible with our previous version of Tech.io. So if you're using Tech.io, it will work. You can just drop in the new library. There will be improvements to it as we go forward to make it faster, especially on parallel computers, and more efficient with memory.
Yeah.
But you can use it now.
And so, again, we'll continue to work on parts and components throughout the year. With the new customer portal, people will be able to continue to ask for additional functionality, and our intent is to try to be as responsive as possible. I mean, that's the key here, is that as we learn, if it's really mission critical, we will try to get after it. And our new infrastructure will make that easier than it was in the past. So here's some other things you need to know. I want to talk about installation, and we'll talk about the My portal in a little more detail, but one of the key things here is that you will need a new license. Someone already asked that question. We're making that process very easy. So if you have an existing license and you just need to get a new license for the upgrade, you'll see that going through our new portal will be very simple. You can actually just request a license, and we'll walk through that in detail in a moment. I actually have decided to defer the detailed discussion of that in a moment. You will be able to run older versions of 360 using the new license. So you don't need to have two license servers in this case, just one. So the key will work. Yeah. And you can also install the two applications side by side. So there may be certain things that you're just not ready to move over into 360EX. And if that's the case, well, you can actually run both. From a backwards compatibility standpoint, we pride ourselves on having extraordinarily robust backward compatible. We can't always talk about forward compatibility. That's a real issue. We certainly, for Subzone Load on Demand in particular, we'll talk about that. But layouts and macros should work. Most of the things that I've been able to open and look at work without problem. And I opened some layouts that I created in 2003. Still load, no problem. PLT and that should say DAT, but you know how Microsoft sometimes will change that. Those files will load, no problem. The new SCPLT format, which is the Subzone Load on Demand format, does have a limitation in that the loading capability is only available in EX. And so really you won't, if you convert your data to SCPLT, you won't be able to load it in a previous version of 360.
No, that's true. What you can do, however, is you can write it out from EX into a PLT format, which could be loaded into a previous version.
Right.
Not as convenient, but it's if you have to get it over to the earlier version, that can be done.
Yeah, and we'll talk about some of the data transformations in a moment. So the new interface, and we'll go through this in detail. Some of the key things, we have dockable sidebars and toolbars, pages, macros, and the way that we load data is more general. In fact, we're kind of looking for ways to improve that. Currently, I think we still kind of have two buttons. One says open a layout, and the other says load a data file. They will likely coalesce. I don't know what we'll call it, load probably. Try to keep it simple. We'll talk about this in detail, but we have a lot more context-driven style changes, so you have to get rid of or start to change your behavior, which again is difficult if you're using Tecplot for a long time, and we'll show you how that works here in a second. And I know, Scott, you're it's
just a few tricks that you have to remember, and it's not hard, but people will notice some slight changes. Yeah.
And this include everything from extracting data, changing style, curve settings, loading style, improvements of the load style or zone style dialog in general. I'll show you that in a moment. And groups and the way that you can leverage groups. Slicing has been overhauled completely. That includes the ability to slice volume surfaces of the volumes, arbitrary slices, and extractions that can be done on screen with one click, and we'll show you that as well. The key thing here is that this is like, think of it as phase one. This capability that we're going to deliver will be continuing to evolve, specifically around the arbitrary slicing capability. The current capability is very functional, but there are things we want to improve.
Yeah, it's really nice. I've been impressed with it, so I think you guys will enjoy it.
The next thing we've implemented is something that was behind the scenes. This is the pages, and we'll talk about that. Pages, this is kind of, think of this as the first implementation of pages, and certainly there are lots of things we're going to improve throughout the year, but pages allow you to have multiple data sets in a particular frame or multiple frames in a particular page, and they can be saved in one layout, which is really great because you can think of this now as having perhaps 10, 15 data sets that you're comparing and having it in one layout, and the layout would link to all 15 files. So we feel that this new capability is somewhat unique to us and will provide a new way to perhaps build reports and presentations. And it's been one of the things that Scott and I have been out on the road talking to customers around the country and around the world, and this is an area where people seem to get very excited.
Yeah, it adds a lot of capability, and people are very excited.
The Automation is another area we've invested a lot of energy in. We'll talk about this in detail and show you how to leverage quick macros, and that includes included in the Tecplot.mcr file into a sidebar and being able to run and automate tasks. Actually, this is phase one. We will be making this even better over time. So we're pretty excited about the new technology, and we'll talk about that as well. Scott's done a fair amount of work, Scott and his team, on the subzone load on demand technology, and we're going to talk about this in detail. But maybe, Scott, if you want to talk about some of the main benefits that we've realized.
Oh, sure. Especially for finite element data, it's dramatically faster.
Right.
And it's we usually compare against Tecplot 360, 2013 R1, and it's 10 to 100 times faster on the FE data. And it uses a lot less memory, and sometimes that's the most important thing. If you're dealing with a billion cell case and you don't have a supercomputer, or you don't want to use your supercomputer because other people are using it, we actually are doing that sort of visualization on machines with 8 gigabytes of memory.
Yeah.
As long as your visualization doesn't get too complicated, it uses maybe a gigabyte or 2 gigabytes of memory.
Yeah, so it's pretty impressive.
It's a dramatically reduction in the memory usage. And the files are smaller, so it's kind of win-win-win. So, I don't think there's any doubt that this is what people will want to do eventually if they have issues with large data.
Yeah.
Now on the calculation side, Darrell mentioned that now is mostly exploration, and going in the future is mostly analysis, but we do have quite a bit of analysis available with the subzone load on demand now. And the way we do that is we only load the data we need to and do the calculations on that data. So if you're going to do a slice, it only does the calculations on the subzones that span the slice. And similarly for an isosurface and for a stream trace. So it's pretty powerful, and it retains that reduction in memory and speed up, even when you're, say, calculating your non-conservative variables from your conservative variables.
Yeah, so we're pleased with the performance we've seen. We're actually going to go through this in detail, so I don't need to go through. We've talked about this a lot, and so perhaps it's easy to sum up if you look at the 3 examples here. Really, where subzone load on demand works best is that we can very selectively load pieces of the volume solution necessary to create the analysis or to do the analysis that you're interested in. And oftentimes the analysis of that piece, the important piece, a slice or isosurface specifically, it's a very small piece of data. It's a very small amount of the total volume. Not often do we hear people saying, boy, what I really care about is what's happening at the far field. It's just not where people invest their energy. So we've been able to leverage this technology, and actually there's some things we're thinking about into the future, including extracts of subzones that might be used as almost like a viewer file format, but because it uses subzones, you may actually have some ability to change what's shown on screen. In essence, to move the slice slightly within that subzone. So pretty cool stuff. Pretty cool stuff all in all.
Yes. And again, the main reason that it speeds things up is that most visualization is I/O bound, especially with large data. So, if you can reduce the amount you read, you're going to speed things up.
Okay, so we're going to go through a little mini tutorial. This is the second phase of the conversation, talking about everything from licensing through the new interface and answer questions. So if you have questions, this is the time to start asking them. So I wanted to start with an overview of a new interface on our website that we've developed to help people with this transition. And I'll see if I can get to it. Okay, so this is Tecplot, as you know, has had over the last, Tecplot.com, has had a place where you could go in and sign up for an account. And we've had several people actually give us feedback that, they're like, hey, I don't mind signing up for an account and all, but why am I doing this? What am I going to get out of this that's going to make it worth my while? And so that was good question, and part of that was the initial implementation was just to get some of the infrastructure built. The idea, though, was we were going to build something that would be my Tecplot area, and so this is the staging server, so this is not live on the website today, which is too bad, but it will be soon. But the idea is that you'll be able to log in and go to my Tecplot, so it'll be tecplot.com/my. And on my Tecplot, you'll have a number of things. You'll have software downloads, and this is where you can download our current products, everything from the License Manager, 360 or Chorus, Focus OS. The version, now there's only one version posted here, but it will basically have the most current version and likely a few versions back so that you can access that. And then the platform, in this case, depending on the product you choose, like if we choose 360, you have more options and more options on what version you download. But you'll be able to download the software from here. So then that you just hit download, and then it's pretty common. You'll hit download, and it will prompt you to download it. And I don't really need to download it. Okay. All right. If you're in the beta program, you'll actually have access to the beta. So one of the things here is you'll actually be able to then say, oh, I'm part of the beta program. Here's the beta. You'll be able to download that as well. In addition to the software, you'll actually be able to access your license keys. So you'll see that this shows a number of licenses. None of these are particularly real, but we'll go ahead and click more licenses and keys. And this will populate a list of all the licenses you have. So these are, let's say there's a Tecplot 360. It's a single user license. It's expired. Here's one that's still available, and here's another that's still available. So if we click on this, it will say you have 3 keys. So here are the keys. So if I wanted to just download one, say for example I knew it was on a particular machine, I could just email it to myself, download it, or I could deactivate it. So you can only have 3 keys. So at this point, if you had 3 already out there, you could deactivate one. The deactivation process takes a little while. It goes into support. We verify that all the information is correct, and we'll send you back out information on how to activate a new key. So this is a very simple way to get a key. If you have a lot of licenses, you can manage all those licenses in this interface. So we're very excited about that. We're also excited that we've added in the capability to access support. So if you have a support, you want to enter a new ticket, you can actually generate a support ticket and call this is a test, I guess. Doesn't really matter. And Tecplot is not working. Doesn't really matter. And then you can also attach a layout or a file to it or a macro, and then you can submit the product. Let's call this 360 and put it on that one. Okay. So you can submit the ticket, and actually if you go back to your support tickets now, you'll have this ticket that you can go through, and you can see the progress. So where's my newest one? Tecplot 360 isn't working. Okay, well, it doesn't really matter. Oh, this is a test. Okay, so you can take a look at a particular ticket. You can add a response. Just kidding. There's an extra D in there, but it doesn't matter. The idea is so that you'll be able to manage your kind of tech support very easily directly through the web. If you do this by email, so say you send an email with a support incident off to support, they're going to be accessing that. It will create something on your Tecplot. You can go in then and see that support incident. So we're pretty excited. This is some pretty cool technology. It should make it a lot easier for you to access our support staff. And so we're happy to see we've made these improvements. As I said, the next phase of this will be more around product suggestions, and so that'll be coming pretty soon. So, all right. And as we're going to move now into the product, so once you have the product installed, you'll just double-click on the icon. Of course, make sure that it's going to go to the right license. And this is the main interface. Now, some of you sat in on this webinar or webinars like this recently, so you're kind of familiar with this, but since this is more tutorial, I want to show you some of the quick things. So again, we added this idea of a welcome screen. This is where you get started. Ideally, you can go anywhere from a new layout, open a layout, or load a data file. As I said, these two options are redundant. but for consistency with people who've been using the product for a long time, we've left them in. Also, these are the recent layouts that you've had. We're considering adding recent data files. We'll kind of see how the user base likes that, and they can always ask for it. Online resources and documentation are available as well, and if you wanted to go online, post something on Twitter, LinkedIn, etc., you can do that as well. So all of this is kind of in a simple environment. The sidebars are dockable now, so you can, in fact, dock them where you like. I have a widescreen monitor, as most people do nowadays, so space in the horizontal plane is not at a premium. Vertical space is at a premium, so I can actually have multiple of these sidebars. The toolbars similarly can go and be docked on the side as well. Let's see, there we go. So we can actually dock these on the side. And we can actually add ones, so on the scripting front, if I wanted to look at the quick macros, you can see I can add those in as a panel. And similarly, there's one for frames as well, which is here. So now you can actually manage your frames, you can manage your macros, and you can manage your pages all in kind of like one little area, which is nice. Again, we're just trying to make it easy to access information. So let's go ahead and take a look at an example. And again, if you have questions, we'll actually start with something simple. We'll move to something a little more complex.
And they can actually, once this page goes away, you can bring it back.
Right. If you go to a new layout, if you do want to go back to it, you can just go back to the welcome screen.
Yeah.
So we'll go back to the layout. Okay. So we want to talk about loading data. A couple of things most people are aware. If you hit Shift and the third mouse button, you can actually zoom in and out on the workspace. So if you have multiple frames, we're looking at ways to make that even easier. But for right now, that's just something you need to be aware of. We have some of the view options, but not all of the view options in the main interface. They'll be coming back in the subsequent release. So let's go ahead and load a data file. This is the new generic loading interface. And you can see that we basically have the ability to load a layout, a data file, sizzle file, the scplt file, any of the data loaders that we support. Now what's important to understand is that we have, in effect, what we consider to be the most obvious extension built in. So for example, if we'll go to data files for Tecplot, they have .plt and .dat. But if you have someone who writes out files and they call them .tec, which is pretty common in the wild anyway, where people use the .tec. If you do that, you'll see that it will just add in .tec. Now I don't have any .tec files here, but if I did, they would show up. Similarly, if you just went star.star, it will show you everything that's actually in or available in the directory. If I had a data file, it would load. But let's go ahead and we'll go back. We're going to look at, let's see, a Tecplot file. And most of the files I'm going to look at are relatively small until we get into the subzone load on demand, then they'll be quite large. Mm-hmm. And most of them, again, are local. They could be network. We've certainly improved performance with subzone load on demand. If you have data remote and you're kind of using where you're mounting a drive, it really, even in that circumstances, it's going to be a lot better.
Yeah, it works pretty well.
All right, so we have some simulation data here, and actually, let's look at data here. It actually doesn't really matter. We're going to grab one data file here, and it's a simple UAV. Okay, a couple things also we've changed. We've changed some of the defaults, and we'll talk about that in a little more detail. If you have data that doesn't have any surfaces, well, then we turn on a bounding box that just shows the extent of your domain, but we do not actually try to plot anything. That speeds things up substantially. So if you go under options, if we had nothing shown, we use something called a bounding box, and it's enabled for volume zones with no style. But in this case, I believe we have a style, so you shouldn't see it. Or you can, oh, there you go, you can see it. There's the extent of the domain, and you can turn that off. Mm-hmm. Other things, we're going to just kind of focus on some of the more obvious things. We've changed the way that you change the light source. Now it's just a simple icon, you can actually move the light source around as you're trying to highlight areas of interest. We do plan on, in the future, it probably won't be this year, moving to multiple light sources, but that's something that will come soon. All right, we want to talk about slicing first. We've done a fair amount of work, as I said, on slicing. So you can actually grab a slice and move it around, and you can see that right now it's basically slicing through the volume. If we go into the details, you now have a new option, which is arbitrary. So the arbitrary slice, and I'm going to zoom out a bit so you can see, this is the interactor, and we'll see if we can move that around a bit. There we go. Move it out here. Okay. So you can move the origin of the interactor just by grabbing it, and you can rotate it just grabbing the tip of the interactor. We're doing some work to make this even easier to use. You can also use a normal and origin, so that's another way that you can change the arbitrary slice. If you want to go away from the arbitrary slice and you want to go to an X slice, you can just type X. If you want to go to Y, you type Y, or Z to go to Z. And if you wanted to go back to arbitrary, it's an A. So this just shortcuts, easy ways to go back and forth. So,
and we often get questions about, what if I want to do 3 points?
Right, and that's coming.
Right,
yeah,
that's coming.
We're going to add that in.
You can still do that with a macro and an extracting slice, but in the future that'll be part of the interactive slice.
So let's go back to a Z slice, which is actually perpendicular to the wing. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to start looking at just a surface slice. So now we're going to slice on the surface. So this is a new capability for us. So again, you can slice on the volumes, the surfaces, or the surface of the volumes. In this case, the surfaces is most appropriate. You can interact with it, move the slice around on screen. You can see that it's using a solid plane. This is just if you need it to be faster. If you don't need it to be fast, you can have it interact pretty quickly. And it's going to be fast for most things. Really, for OnDemand data, you really wouldn't want to have it always updating because then you would load all of the data.
Right. And when you get into the hundreds of millions of cells, even if it's not subzone load on demand, it's nice to be able to move it faster than you would otherwise.
So I changed to look at more of a mesh view, and I've changed it to show the pressure on the wing. So now you can kind of move this along and see the pressure change on the wing. Or if I want to grab, say, 2 slices here, which all you have to do is hold Shift to get a second one. That puts at a start and end slice, turns off the primary, and we'll put in intermediate slices. We'll do 10 of those. So we'll try to do 10 of those. There we go. All right. So now we have effectively 12 slices on the wing. In the past, if I wanted to do an extraction, you would actually have to go through and right-click on anything. You'd have to go into the dialog, extract slice, and you'd have to do it 12 times. And we have let's see, your interactor is similar to ParaView. We don't use VTK. No, that's a good question, Russell. No, the interactor, I guess, does have some similarities, but no, we use our own internal SDK rendering engine.
Yeah, we developed our own interactor. We borrow ideas from other products out there if they're good, but
yeah,
we wrote this ourselves.
And in terms of the rendering, we did at one point evaluate VTK, and we kind of wanted to see whether or not we could get any performance improvements by using VTK versus our internal engine. Yeah,
and the answer is no. There's always corner cases where it's faster, but for the most part, our engine is as efficient. And now with the Sizzle format, the subzone load on demand, it's significantly faster than VTK.
So a couple things to point out. We have these slices. If I want to extract them, I can do that with one click. So I right-click and I can hit extract. And what this is going to do is extract each one of these as a zone. We'll do that here. And now we're going to use pages. So this is a page that I'll just call my 3D view. And we're going to create a new page. And we'll call this CP plots. And now we have 2 pages. The first page, again, is our view. The second page is the CP plots. And one thing that you can do that's pretty easy is you can pop into a frame and move into align mode. Once I do that, it's basically going to pull the data in from the page that I was on last into this frame, and now we actually have a line plot. And let me show you some of the things we've done to improve line plotting in general. So this is the new zone styles dialog. You can see that there's a couple of things that are similar and some things that have changed. We have improved it by using some color coding so that your eye is drawn to things related to the variable and zones versus the style versus the zone information or the map information. Mm-hmm. We're going to go ahead and delete these maps. Something that has come up, and I've asked a bunch of people about this out on site. But basically, I've asked the question, what do you do with the data when you bring it into actual align mode? And it seems like 9 times out of 10, people are basically getting rid of all of the ones they don't need and then creating them. So we're going to create some maps. And the mapping name, we're going to use all zones. So we'll do an X versus Y for all zones. And for the X-axis, we are going to use Y because I believe Y is the axis. Is that right? Y or Z? These are Z slices. So
yeah, I can't remember.
Z would be constant, so it's Y. And then for the Y-axis, we'll use pressure. And we're going to do this for all the zones, and we'll say OK. And so you can see we have a bunch of zones that are maps that were created. We're going to get rid of these because these are volume zones, and that's something we're going to improve as well. So here are the slices that we made, and I'll hit Control F, and you can kind of see those maps. It looks like we have some of the tail section. I could use blanking for this, but for right now, I'll just deactivate these curves, and that's easy enough to do. And I'll hit Control F. Okay, so these are the CP curves that I extracted.
Yeah, and that right click is to be able to right click on those curves and deactivate them is a real nice improvement to the interface. It's a lot easier than sorting through the
trying to figure out which one it is.
Yeah.
So the other thing that you can do, let's see. Okay, yeah, we'll get to that in a second. A couple of things we've done also, if I want to change the zone, I can just right-click on here and start typing. So if I wanted, say, the wing, I can type in wing, and you'll notice that it will look at or only bring up those zones that have wing in them, which is great. Here's this new way if you have lots of variables, and I'll escape. I don't think we need to change that. Same thing for the variables. Now, this data set, I think, has quite a few variables, but you can see this is the drop-down. You can see there's 34 variables, but if I just wanted wall, I type in, get over here, pardon me, and type in wall, and what it will do is bring out only those variables with wall. So this is kind of a very quick way, if you have a lot of variables, you have a lot of zones, to come in and get the zones that you actually want. So we're pretty excited by that. Pretty nice improvement, again, to the usability. On the mapping names, again, we've also made some improvements there. So in the past, you can see you can just right-click on this, and basically it says, okay, if I look at, say, right now it's bringing up the zone name. But if I wanted to change this to say, hello, and then the zone name, and then perhaps the dependent variable name, I can double-click and add that in. Okay. And then if I just press enter, you'll see it will change the name for all of them. If I go now back and go into the data under the plot, and put in a line legend, you'll see that the line legend includes the hello slice and then the dependent variable. So.
And what you were adding there is dynamic text. For those of you that haven't used it, it's really valuable. Not only can you use it in map names, but you can use it in text, and annotations, and it's something you should take advantage of.
Absolutely. So there's our CP plots, and I'm going to hide the box here for a second, and we're going to go in and add a new page, and I'm going to look at span-wise pressure. So we'll call this span, and we're going to go back into our 3D view for a moment. And so one of the things, again, that we've changed is the ability to do extractions. So I can create a geometry which basically goes along the center chord of the wing. If I select the geometry and right-click, you'll see I actually can do an extraction. So I can use this to extract points right off the surface, and I'll use 2000. And we'll go ahead and do that. And you can see basically it's going to go through, it's going to extract. You can see them doing the extraction now in real time. And once I have access to that information, I'm going to go back into that new page I just created, and we're going to look at a line plot of that. So we'll go to Span, move into the line mode, go back into mapping styles, and we're just going to delete these here. And even these, actually. All right. Okay, so all the maps are gone. We'll change this to the extracted points, and I bet you it's extracted. There they are. All right. Go ahead and change that to extracted points as the zone. In this case, we're kind of slicing along the z direction, so we'll want to change our x-axis to z. Hold on one more time. Again. And for the y-axis, let's look at pressure. Let's put that as pressure. Okay, and then we'll hit Control F, and so this is what the pressure looks like as a function on that line. So not particularly interesting, but that's okay. I'm not overly concerned about the data as much as showing you some of the things you can do with it. So,
right. And those of you who are fluid dynamicists, I mean that's not what you would expect, but no. It is. It's not a converged solution, so you know it's just
either that or it might have extracted off the in the free field.
Yeah, we have to be careful what we extract from.
Yeah, but that's neither here nor there for right now. Okay, so we're going to do a curve fit. Let me put on the symbols so you can see what they look like. And if I wanted to do a curve fit, I can change this to, say, a polynomial fit, which it's probably going to use a low-order polynomial. And we can certainly change that here. Oh, it's a third-order polynomial. Let's actually change this to like a fifth-order polynomial. Okay, well, mostly linear. So not much you can do about it. If I right-click, then I can actually show the curve details right on the plot. So there are the details for the plot. And if you hit minus, you can make the font smaller so that it all shows up. If I wanted to go, say, to a linear fit, I go over here, I'm going to change this to a linear fit. You can see that it updates the information dynamically. So you can take a look at some of the merits of, it's clearly aligned because the R-squared value is 1. Doesn't matter. But you get the idea. So the idea is that you'll be able to do extractions. You'll be able to look at the data very quickly and do some analysis right there on screen. So, all right. If I add a frame now, so I can take this frame. I'm going to copy it with Control C. So I just selected the frame boundary. I hit Control C. If I hit Control V, you'll notice that now I have 2 frames, and I'll actually use the tile frame option and just put them side by side. So here's frame 1 and frame 2. You can, if they were on top of each other, which let's go ahead and make that obvious. So here's a frame that's on top. This is frame 2. I can right-click in this interface and say send it to the back, which will put it in the back, or I can bring it to the front. And you can kind of adjust the frames and how they're set up, which is a good way for you to kind of easily interact with multiple frames and create multiple pages. So the other thing that you can do, because I copied a Control C, I can pop in now, and if I Control V, what I've done basically is I've copied it to the clipboard. And if I make this a little smaller so you can see it show up. So there's my plot. And if I go back into PowerPoint now, oops, I guess I'm on the very last page. Go back to the very first page. There's my plot. I can bring it directly out. So it's on the clipboard. So that's kind of a neat new capability as well. All right. So we're going to get into any questions on this. Feel free to type them in. If not, we're going to pop over and start looking at some subzone load on demand data. So let's go ahead and delete this frame as well. If I want to save this layout, which I'll go ahead and do that, and I'll put it on the desktop, and we'll just call this test 1. And as a layout, there we go. Oh, you know what? It's asking me to save. I extracted data, so it's okay. We're not going to play around with this right now. Not important. Let's get to a new layout. No, we don't need to save this, I guess. Let's talk about some subzone load on demand data. So we're going to start by loading in a data file and then writing it out.
Yeah.
So I'm going to, we'll go open a layout, but it's the same thing as loading data. We're going to load a PLT file, and this is going to be a relatively large file. It's local. And we're going to load it in PLT format. And this is not going to be exceedingly fast, just so everyone's on the same page. But I'll show you how much faster it is with subzone load on demand. So this is the full solution. It's about 4.88 gigabytes. It is about 45 million cells. So it's not a small file. And we're going to go ahead and open this. And so what Tecplot's going to do now is it's not going to load all the data, but it is going to read through the file. It's going to determine which zones are the volume. And you can see that it loaded the data, and it came up pretty quick, I'd say.
Probably cached, huh?
Yeah, it's quite possibly. Or the new style defaults are a little better. But, okay. So you load in the data, and let's go to dataset info and see just about how big this is. So the dataset itself, let's see, is about 70 million elements, about 33 million points. So it's a relatively large file. Tecplot 360EX is, in some cases, 2 to 5 times faster than Tecplot 360 2013 R1.
Right, on the same data set.
On the same data
This
set.
is even classic data sets like PLT.
Yeah.
Or
so one thing that comes up a lot is, oh my gosh, so I got all these zones. Well, how do I quickly change them? So there's 2 ways you can do that. The zone styles dialog, I'll go ahead and load this up real quickly so you can see. I can now go in and say, oh, you know what, let's get all the BC1s here. So I can type in BC1 and hit enter, and you can see it will find all the zones. Yeah. And then if I want to deactivate them or turn them off, turn them on, I can do that with one click. So right here, one click, I can deactivate them. I could also put them into a new group, like group 3. Now if I want to select group 3, I can hit 3 and hit groups, and it will grab all my zones. So if you work with data sets that have large numbers of zones, this can speed up your analysis a lot.
Yeah, it's much easier.
Much, much easier. All right, let's see. We don't need to have anything selected. We'll go back to this, and we'll hit redraw. And I want to show you another way that you can interact with this, which is using a simple right-click. I don't need translucency for this example, so I'll turn that off. It'll speed things up a tad. I can right-click and deactivate a zone on screen as well. So I can actually say, well, I don't need to see the top. And similarly, I can deactivate the top on both sides here. I can deactivate the symmetry planes, and there's likely 2 of them. I can deactivate the outflow here. I'm assuming that this is the out. So the out boundary, and similarly, don't probably need the inlet as well, although this isn't strictly an inlet. All right. So it's a lot easier to navigate, and I can deactivate some of these zones around the race car itself. Again, these are not really volume zones, so it doesn't really matter too much. All right, now we're down there.
Now you're starting to see the car.
All right, so we have the car. If you want to change the orientation axis, put your mouse where you want, type O, and it will change it so you can kind of zoom in and out on the race car. So we're going to drop in a slice, and you can see that when I drop in the slice now, it's going to load all the data. So for the slice, so pressure was not loaded. Now it's loading all the pressure, so it takes quite a bit of time here to load. And then we're going to show you a similar exercise with subzone load on demand, which is much, much faster.
And you can hear his computer, maybe. It's kind of spooling up with the fan, so you know it's working. And this is a pretty typical experience. Now, Tecplot is not the only application that does this. You know, no. We've done a lot of testing, or I should say, our customers have done a lot of testing against competitors, and this is a pretty typical experience. You know, if you have a large data set, it takes a while.
All right, so there you go. We have pressure. So, you know, it took us about a minute or so to go through the exercise. of loading the data and creating a slice. If I want to write this data out, and actually I'll do that now, we're going to go into Write Data File. And we have new formats, so we can write out in an SCPLT file, which is basically taking this and decomposing it into its component subzones. We can use write it out in ASCII or binary, but we've generalized this capability so that users can develop data writers so that you can, in fact, write data out in Plot3D or CGNS or any file format that you want, which is pretty cool. So we generalized a long time ago the data loading capability. Now we've generalized the data writing capability so that you can write data writers, which is, again, going to be very helpful for some organizations.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Scott.
So this is where you're writing the new Sizzle format. And this is one of two ways to create the Sizzle files, which I don't know if you
can talk about it.
But this is if you want to convert a data file, you can do it this way. Read it in, write it out. You can automate it in a macro and run it in batch, so you don't actually have to run the program. You just run the batch file,
right?
And it'll do it in the background. You can put that into your scripts. If you're running a CFD code, you can add it into your scripts to convert whatever file format it is. It doesn't have to be a PLD file. Any format that's capable of.
Okay, streams over any 3D body. Yes, okay. Ken, poor meeting is like, oh, no. Okay, so where should we? I want to go with this now. I'm going to show you. Yeah, now it does take about a minute.
Size of the file. It's going to be just use, but we make it efficient. Data break it into smaller ones. It takes a little longer. Grids. Ordered grids are more processed to break it up, and it can be a couple minutes.
Yeah.
So.
And even though this is using a lot of memory, we're going to go ahead and look at an example of the file. I've already kind of baked the chicken, so to speak. Well, the idea where you're at the cooking show and
that's right.
What? It's okay. Can't hear? Oh, we're having some audio issues, so hopefully will resolve itself. Well, in this case, I'm going to go ahead then and I'm going to profile loading a data file or a layout. And hopefully she'll finish up here pretty soon. And the data file in question is actually a local data file that I've already created. And this is the SCPLT file, and we'll hit OK or Open. And basically, you're going to see it took us, about a minute or so to get to the plot of interest with the layout at probably 45 seconds to a minute, at least what we've seen in the past. And now we're using the PLT format, and it takes about 13 seconds.
Yeah. It's a factor of 10, probably.
And you'll also notice less than a gigabyte of memory.
Which is, in some cases, is key, as we talked about before.
Yeah, no, we understand the audio streams being
so we'll make sure to speak more directly into the...
No, it's the accessibility of my laptop.
Oh, okay. We'll talk slowly.
Maybe I'll just go ahead and cancel this.
Yeah.
Since it's taking up too much bandwidth. Okay, that should be a little better. Sorry, guys, too much processing power. Okay, hopefully that's a little better. So anyway, that gives you an idea. Let me quickly show you that it probably was almost done. Yeah, it had basically made the SCPLT file, which is about 3 gigs, and it was just going through each variable and creating the tree, the index tree. So, but we quit it before it had a chance to finish.
So hopefully you can hear us better now. If you still have trouble, let us know.
Okay, so a couple of quick things, and I'll go ahead and show this on a different data set, but let's go ahead and shouldn't take too long to load. Should be in memory. Okay, so the question was, when I copy plot to clipboard, can we use anti-aliasing and set width? this is the menu, so it's a little bit different, but yes, you will have that capability soon. So, the next one.
You asked to show how to create a stream traces over a 3D body now. As he brings this up, he can show you how to do that. Oh, this is an ISO surface. So you can basically click on those ISO surfaces and seed stream traces. And that's how you can, I mean, usually what we do is we put them on a plane, right? There's a plane. So you don't want to, if you seed it on the surface, it'll stay on the surface usually, or sometimes not move if there's zero velocity there. But if you put it on a plane in the field around a slice plane in the field around the object, then you'll get stream traces.
Yeah, and you'll be able to actually, you can put them on you can use surface lines. In this case, I'm not so sure that we actually have data on the surface, so I'll tell you here in about 2 seconds as I try to generate a few on there, maybe 10. No, I don't think we have any velocity on the surface of this model. But for volume lines, for example, you can actually use the slice and just come in and right on top of the slice you can generate stream traces. We had the capability in 2013 R1 to just select a surface. Jeremy would like to know about shear lines. Do you want
to? Lost variables for your vector variables.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, sure. On the surface, if you select the surface shear components as your vector variables, we'll see if we have those here. Yeah, tau x, tau y, tau z. Then that will work till I put stream trace. Now that in this case we had the volume lines, so you'll need to seed the stream trace on the surface again. It should work then. It's a good point, Jeremy. Oh, still having trouble hearing us. So.
Yeah. Well, looks like it's on the surface now. There you go.
Yeah, so that's correct. Shear is not zero on the surface, and so you can use shear as your vector variable and create lines on the surface.
At this point, we'll open it up to questions. We have just a couple more minutes. We've had a lot of questions. Hopefully, we've kind of addressed them along the lines or along the way, but we have time for maybe 1 or 2 more questions. And hopefully, can someone let us know, can you hear us or not? It looks like we had 2 people say we can't hear. Yes, I can hear you.
Good.
Okay, good. All right. Other questions? Multiple edges. Okay. So Mohammed, maybe that's a question that we can perhaps we can bring in STL files. He had asked a question about whether or not you can bring in. He's trying to create zones for complex geometry.
Right.
We can bring in STL files, so you would be able to bring in CAD data in that format.
Yeah, Mohammed, I would say that if you have a complex surface you're trying to bring in, you should probably bring it in as a zone, a surface zone. Mm-hmm. And then you can read a STL file in as a surface zone. So although we have our geometries, the geometries that we use are primarily for annotations. For an actual geometry of the vehicle, you would want to use a surface zone.
Right.
Excuse me.
Someone asked about who will win the World Cup, and that's a dangerous question to get into, Jeremy. But if you live in Brazil, I'd say it's Brazil. If you live somewhere else, maybe you have a different opinion on that. Okay. Pages and frames. Okay, well, probably the easiest way to, there's a question about pages and frames, and we'll go maybe 1 more minute past here. If you have pages, pages are basically almost like slides in PowerPoint. that a particular page can have multiple frames, that those frames could then contain data from multiple data sets. And so in principle, the idea is that frames are vessels for data, so you can associate data with them. Pages are vessels for frames, so you can have multiple frames in a single page. And one layout can have multiple pages, which have multiple frames, which have multiple data sets.
Yes. We have a question about can one STL surface zone be shared amongst all solution time steps? Actually, Ryan, yes. If you read in an STL file, it will not have a solution time associated with it.
Yeah.
So it will be present throughout the animation.
Yeah. Someone asked a question about 3D triangulation. You probably noticed that the first version of EX does not have triangulation. And the reason that it doesn't have triangulation is because we are going to be looking at triangulation in general. And one of the things we're looking into is the idea of doing 3D triangulation in this version. So if you're interested, send me a quick note or join the beta program. We'd love to hear your feedback. That's something we're looking at. Okay, if I have multiple data files and I want the average pressure contour, can I create it? Yeah, it's pretty straightforward using data alter.
Data alter, yeah. In data alter, you can actually refer to other zones.
Yeah.
And so you would just do that. You would add add it up together and, from all the zones.
Mm-hmm.
Might take a while if you have a lot of zones.
It might.
Or
yeah.
you could do it with a macro to speed it up.
There's a question about, will my macros work? How about add-ons? Well, the question on macros, they should work. Add-ons
need to be recompiled.
Need to be recompiled. Yeah, that's.
But they don't. They're source compatible. They're not executable object file compatible.
I think the libraries need to be updated. So someone was asking about locating min-max. That can be done again. In the macro. Let's see here. I think that's it. Oh, in terms of the email, if you just go onto if you want to join the beta program, if you jump into the website, you'll notice it says be a beta tester. Just click on that and sign up. It will send me an email. It comes directly to me, and I'll go ahead and add you in. So hopefully soon.
And I don't know if you have the PowerPoint, you can bring it up and show that probably has the website and everything on it.
Yeah, to become a beta tester, we'll leave you with this, and we're actually a couple minutes over, so apologize. If you'd like to be a beta tester, you can just pop over to the website. On the right side of the website, you'll see an area where you can sign up to be a beta tester. And we will add you to the list. We have about 250-ish, 260 active beta testers right now. Love to have more.
And if any of you are using Tech.io and would like to use the new Tech.io, or you just want to output the sizzle format from your application, go ahead and contact us and let us know that you'd like to do that, because we're looking for people that we can work with and get feedback.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, with that, thank you again for joining us this morning or afternoon if you're on the East Coast. And we will be having another webinar coming up soon, probably as early as May, where we'll be working with an organization that develops a code that does immersed boundary layer, immersed boundary, not boundary layer, but immersed boundary techniques in detail. So that will be a little bit more of a use case, and we'll be using 360EX as part of it. Thank you again, everyone, and we'll see you at the next webinar.
Thank you.